I've been following some major legal developments over the past week, and if you live in California or follow Second Amendment news, you've probably already heard the big one. Last week, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals handed down a huge ruling in the Rhode v. Bonta case, the one challenging California's ammunition background check laws. And, let's just say, it's got everyone on edge right now. Let me break down what's happening, since there's been a lot of confusion, especially after some businesses started jumping the gun and shipping out ammo like the law no longer existed. But that's not quite how this works. And, unfortunately, we've now got an official advisory from the California DOJ telling everyone to pump the brakes. So let's rewind just a bit. This case has been grinding its way through the courts for years. It all stems from Proposition 63, which passed back in 2016. That proposition added background checks for ammunition purchases in California, which set California apart. Starting in 2019, Californians couldn't even buy bullets without going through a point-of-sale background check, which often failed even for people with clean records. Well, Kim Rhode, an Olympic gold medalist shooter and longtime advocate for gun rights, became one of the lead plaintiffs in this case, arguing that California's ammunition regulations placed an undue burden on law-abiding citizens and violated the Second Amendment. The case moved slowly, with ups and downs, but last week, on July 24th, a three-judge panel at the Ninth Circuit finally issued an opinion, and it was big. By a 2-1 vote, the court sided with the plaintiffs, declaring California's ammo background check system unconstitutional. The majority opinion said that the state had failed to prove that this system was part of any historical tradition of firearms regulation, which is now the standard after the Supreme Court's 2022 Bruen decision. That Bruen ruling really changed how courts evaluate Second Amendment challenges. And we're seeing its ripple effects now. Now here's where things get messy. When this Ninth Circuit decision dropped, a lot of people thought that meant the law was effectively dead. And technically, the court did affirm a lower court's permanent injunction against the law. But, and this is critical, that injunction isn't active yet. The reason? The Ninth Circuit hasn't issued its mandate. That's the final step that makes the decision binding. Until that mandate is issued, the old rules stay in place. That's standard legal procedure, and that's where the California DOJ stepped in. Just a few days after the ruling, on July 28th, they issued advisory. No. 2025-166. It states in no uncertain terms that California's background check requirements for ammunition are still in full effect. The DOJ clarified the opinion doesn't change enforcement until the Ninth Circuit issues the mandate and transfers jurisdiction back to the district court. Dealers and buyers are expected to follow the existing rules. But here's the issue. Several businesses didn't wait. As soon as the ruling came out, they shipped ammo into California as if the law were gone. Some folks thought we were entering a second Freedom Week, referencing that brief window in 2019 when California's magazine ban was temporarily lifted, and people rushed to buy standard capacity magazines before the court reinstated the law. But unlike that situation, this time there hasn't been any official stay lifted, no mandate, no court order allowing a window of legal activity, and that puts buyers, and especially sellers, in a risky spot. If you're a company shipping ammo into California right now without conducting background checks, and you're doing it based on the Ninth Circuit opinion alone, you might be setting yourself and your customers up for legal trouble. The DOJ's advisory wasn't vague about that. They said enforcement will continue, and the law, as it stands, remains valid for now. This legal limbo is frustrating, a win, but still having to wait, to hold back, and to follow laws that a federal appeals court just said were unconstitutional. But that's how the system works. Until that final mandate comes down, the status quo remains. It's procedural, not political. Though it certainly feels political when you're on the receiving end of these regulations. I think a lot of people had hoped the DOJ might take a more restrained approach while things played out. But instead, they came out swinging, making sure everyone knew the state isn't backing down. Not yet, anyway. And now we're back in this frustrating holding pattern, waiting to see whether California will request an en banc review. That's when the full Ninth Circuit, not just a 3-judge panel, would reconsider the decision. If they do file for that review, the issuance of the mandate could be delayed even longer. In the meantime, it's all up in the air. Are we moving toward the end of California's ammo check laws? Possibly. But as of today, and I mean literally today, the last day of July 2025, those laws are still in place. Dealers have to run background checks. Out-of-state sellers are expected to comply. And if you're a buyer thinking about placing an order, you might want to double-check with someone who knows the legal terrain, maybe even a firearms attorney, before moving forward. Now, one thing I want to stress here is that this isn't just a California problem. This case, and others like it, are part of a much bigger national conversation about gun rights, state overreach, and how the courts interpret the Constitution post-Bruen. When the Supreme Court laid out that new historical tradition test in 2022, it set a higher bar for governments to justify gun control laws. Basically, states now have to show that any restriction on the Second Amendment has a clear historical analog, something that was widely accepted at the time the Constitution was written or shortly thereafter. That's not easy to do when you're talking about something like modern ammunition background checks, which didn't even exist until very recently. The Ninth Circuit majority opinion in Rhode v. Bonta picked up on that. The judges pointed out that California's system not only fails to meet the historical test, but also imposes serious, real-world burdens on law-abiding citizens who are just trying to buy ammo for sport, training, self-defense, or recreation. In fact, the court highlighted how the system has resulted in tens of thousands of wrongful denials. People who should have passed the background check but got rejected anyway, due to database errors or mismatches. The system was messy from the beginning, and it's only become more controversial over time. That's why this decision matters so much. It's not just symbolic. It acknowledges that these regulations aren't just annoyances. They have real consequences. They prevent people from exercising a constitutional right. And now, with this ruling, we have one of the most powerful courts in the country saying flat out, this goes too far. But, like I said, the win isn't final yet. It's a huge step. But it's not the last one. And what happens next depends a lot on what the California Attorney General decides to do. If they ask for an en banc review, it's possible, maybe even likely, that the court will agree to rehear the case. The Ninth Circuit is known for doing that, especially in cases where the outcome challenges long-standing state policies. That could drag things out for months, or even longer. And even beyond the Ninth Circuit, this case could eventually make its way to the Supreme Court. It has all the ingredients: a clear constitutional question, conflicting interpretations, a broad public impact. Whether or not SCOTUS takes it up is impossible to predict, but it's certainly within the realm of possibility, especially if another circuit court rules differently in a similar case. That kind of circuit split is exactly what the Supreme Court tends to step in to resolve. In the meantime, everyone is left holding their breath. California gun owners are waiting to see if they'll finally be able to buy ammo without jumping through hoops. Dealers are trying to stay compliant while keeping their customers happy. Out-of-state sellers are nervous about legal exposure. And of course, activists on both sides are watching closely, ready to pivot depending on what happens next. I think one of the most frustrating things for people right now is the legal gray area. There's a ruling that says the law is unconstitutional, but there's also an advisory that says the law is still being enforced. It feels like a contradiction. But again, that's just how the process works. Until the procedural steps are done, and that mandate is issued, nothing actually changes on the ground. That's why it's so important not to act prematurely. A misstep here could mean fines, lost licenses, or worse. And that's really the biggest takeaway from all this. Patience. I know it's exhausting. I know people are tired of waiting and of being caught in this cycle of legal wins that don't lead to immediate results. But that patience is necessary, because the stakes are real. Getting this wrong could land good people in legal jeopardy, just for trying to follow a court decision they thought was final. There's also a political angle to this that shouldn't be ignored. California has long been a testing ground for aggressive gun control policies. Proposition 63, the ammunition checks, the registration laws. All of it has been part of a broader strategy to push the limits of what courts will allow. And for a long time, it worked, but the legal landscape is shifting. Bruen changed the game, and now states are being forced to defend their policies in ways they haven't had to before. That's why the Rhode v. Bonta decision feels like more than just a temporary victory. It feels like a signpost, a signal that even in a circuit as traditionally liberal as the Ninth, there's a growing recognition that some of these laws go too far. And that's something worth paying attention to, whether you live in California or not. So here's what I'd say to anyone watching this. Stay alert. Follow credible sources. Watch for updates from the courts, especially any news about a mandate or an en banc hearing. If you're a gun owner in California, make sure you know the rules as they stand today, not just as you wish they were. And above all, be smart. Don't rely on internet rumors or wishful thinking. This is the law we're talking about, and the consequences are real. I'll be keeping a close eye on any developments, and if something changes, if that mandate drops, or the DOJ updates their guidance, I'll be back with another update. For now, just know that even though the fight isn't over, a major line has been drawn. The Ninth Circuit's decision might not be the final word, but it's a powerful one, and it could be the beginning of a much bigger shift. Thanks for sticking with me through all this. I know it's a lot, but these are the moments that matter, the ones that shape the future of our rights and our responsibilities. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll catch you next time.